Live from the Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort Studio in Farmington Hills, Michigan, it's the Zia Oram Show.
شد مردوثة البايد شن بلا خيون بث نهرين معمورين شلامة وحباب براسين كلذانا يا كلذانا يا يا ذي ماني ون قبثة وتزونا أتامي ون قوات الدهوة تخيري ون ما شما بشرى بمشمي ما دما بشصب يمدمي ما أمسد ليلة لم كمي كلذانا يا كلذانا يا معمورة ون وبرجد باب البنية ون قانون دخاية درية ون بش منك ما بقيلد ما حيلي كوش ما دخن دقاريلي آوا مثلو أنا خيلي كلدانا يا كلدانا يا كلدانا يا كلدانا يا كلدانا يا يا برونة أمتي جبارة أمت خوال اللخ بسفارة مرم الديش محباورة كلدانا يا كلدانا يا كلدانا يا
شماية عزيزة بشكالة جان زيا أورم إلى نمبر 1 شو.
أنا ملبانة يلدا قلة قدار الإسلامي قمايا تأخوني جان زيا أورم وقدار إسلامي خن زودانا الأخواتي سالم جدو وأخواتي وأخوني جان يلدا خوشابه تتهاوى بصيخ أمه وآي قصيدة زين أمرنا دها إلى تجان زي أورم بس وأني بتواب شماء
مقبول.
يا جان زي أورم يا قورة الزونة خاثة يا جان زي أورم يا قورة الزونة خاثة اكطلب طالو صاخوثة وبيث ملي بركاثة مريم حاسيل بابوخ مرحبة ومرطاواثة تولي أمخ كم خازنخ قورنيخة ومكيخة اكشقلت وكياود بهديوثة بعيانة ولبخ بصيخة مريا بتهاوي أمخ وعمرخ بتاوي يريخة بس قالت كم شارتن بلوشانة بابا وساوة إيشع وتلميذ دي بقاود سورة محكاوة كالداي كم يقريلخ لذشول رابة وطاوة طالخ كياون هوناي يا جان زي أورم كهند إيتا كم يقرت يلباند روح دايم مريا إيل بعيانوخ بصلوثة ديمة مريم مريا إيل بعيانوخ بصلوثة ديمة مريم وكشوقنوخ بشلامه
I'm George Zoma.
This is Brooklyn Marie Hadir Yaldo.
I'm Isabella Alos.
This is Abigail Rita Hadir Yaldo.
I'm Grace Davish. Welcome to the John Zia Oram Show.
I'm Maxwell Munder Zoma. Shlama.
Shlama Maxwell. Shlama locho chwata chwata John Zia Oram. Idil Turshabo. إذا ما أقرأ شبث إيذو أرخوال بعراق أخني أخكنا شاي لشاب إنه الحرب والبيسبول ويلاي سو إلى شبثو ما دتوخم بلطولام لبوخو beautiful week was on Palm Sunday Timmel we were beautiful كبيرة ناشي لا بيزال ليه تاثا بس بيذا واثا so كوزالنا إيذا واثا maybe could يرخب قرب دوذو خي إذا خوذت كوذي بكندا وكل يرخب ما لا يتعثو تنديو special guest دي أخا Paul مني ليلة أخا كامرا هم أو التقاف هيثم جولاك كامرا التقاف so يعني أي كورونا لك إذا ما هيثم كامرا بطلع نيجاتيف بس كامرا يقول لي ناشد حكومة كم شقليلة بواشنطن عيد كودي والله دي وباul مني لك راكن we have Tiger game, Lions game, or hockey game all the same day. So don't ask me how. Opening day. So it's a special guest D and Abdathia Aho, Honorable Judge Deborah Nass, ila 46th District Court, Southfield. Ila 5 cities, surrounding cities. Ila Judge Tamo, I Tresession ila Tamo, very good friend of our community, a great jurist. And we want to talk to her, very first outside guest that we have in a long time, and I appreciate her. And she's actually got her own radio show, 68, on a friend of mine, Kevin Odell broadcasting 68 on Saturdays, live 9:10 a.m. About laws and different mandana. How do you get to be a judge? How do we get appointment from the governor, whoever is the governor in charge, for our people to be a judge? We have a lot of young, beautiful men and women, especially the women part of it. They love this stuff, and they're smarter, I think, to be appointed than elected. اخني غزيلوخك معكو politics وسياسة غزديم سياسة يالاني وخمل باي because اخني عيش لنا بعراق قام دايدي لا dictatorship, dictators, whatever you want to call them. So dictatorship. So Basyalan, he'll very bright, from Indiana University to Southern Cal to Stanford to U of D to San Diego State, Kule. So Kotawa Nashidi and the young people D and the future D and Akhni Sarai. Bas Khashwan at Edo, Ashef Thadida. تأخني سراي السورة سولة hello دخوتو أيديوخو محكو is most beautiful إلى unbelievable الحرية دش خلا ناخذ ثنا لأمريكا تن محكوخ لولدها كم شعر بروما وبطرق ديا ومطرانيين ديا وقاشة ديا وشماشة ديا to keep it going, but we got to try harder. لازم نجربه بشكابر تد زالم محكوية أثمندي زالم بلاب أثمندي وشر لازم كذا نخو مشر سكولز ده ملبي قصة أخو تاما بس بشلن كبيرة ولخص رخلات تيالن كد لخص رخلات تيالن من دانا بسورة ذن محكوخ كين إنه بشما بإيتا إلى ملوب كبيرة والتن كبيرة قاشة إلى بزور بعمره كذي سورة وكذي some of them عربي وإنجليزي بس يخم محكوي كبيرة إنجليزي ديا إنجليزي ديا إلى رندا بس إنجليزي يعلن كل بيلا مدارس كل بيلا ما منه باي سوشيال ميديا كل بيلا بخوري وخورياثي وكل أن من دان وبيثا بس سورة كبيرة إلى very important وكبيرة رزواثا لازم دو دخلها بسورة وبعربي بس ما كمريني ناشد إلى involve كمريني ناشد كبيرة يا لزورة كبات شميد رازة بإنجليزي I don't think so I think they will a chance يعلن مالبخلة قمايعانو بسورة وأن بابا واثن مسيرات دي نكمل بيلا نثمن دي long time ago وبغزايا بتاريخ دها it's a beautiful feeling ما كمري لنا شو to make a theology وبس إخوات الميري أثي ضرابة جيبا ونبوابي محكوي يمي at 97 years old I'm so blessed I do miss my dad a lot بث عمره هامي بس كاميرا كدوتو وزورة بروني هادخ وذلن well it was very simple life بس أخني كالديا سراي عجبنا جروب من دانا خاث بثايل أمريكا خيمة دسخي وسيرة هيك التاو بس بيثا الليل لازم ناشخله أث إذا إلى آي خاء صغيرة مخاء آي قهيرة مخنا مخاء أخني لوخو هذا خب عراق كلن بس كد ويرا بارب بلغو ودخلت من دي قي كم رخادخ كل علمك جاقرو لك محوكي وليو خرخني بس أخني ليو كبير ده أبتشي ليو مليون ناشب كل علمه كمي بتاريخ دي أخو ملايين وخو وقت الله وقت زلا بس إلى وقت السوشيال ميديا وقت باور إتن كبيرة حكومة بيذن كذا منيلا من ليلة وقد تذو قشك وانا لك وذو برابو ناشد كذي but we must demand something back so نمحكوين بالخا خورا إلى بشما إديو وهم محكوي أنا وخوني وخنة لازم هني حكومة to start appointing people ديان لازم ولا start cutting their money تشيكات الكي وخلا يا يبزال الجمعيات ديان والorganization ديان وبدمري ودلن but we have to fight back in a positive way together كنك محكنا أنا ناشا ثيلا اللي كميو أي أدخ ميرخو أحسن من دي ميرخو لا ميرخو ليوخم محكو الorganization ديان يوخم محكوي what's ours ميلي ديان أثمن دي وقمايكم شارة بث سورة بسيمة إن بقراية إديو إيميل كاثيري من عرب بأخوري بديربون إنه بقراية الكاميرا that Arab conference with the White House زيو دي تلفون اللي more publicity تلفون كود أخوار بخميثة أنا كنا بواشنطن مي زيو دي conference ولا كم زيو دي conference إمت خمسة وأسرة وخمسة خواذ كود خخني بجمعيات ديان كميل الثيخة كل أيامت كيف بالت بلاين Arab American يغزيلو خخني كالديان so ليلة بمرة طالن Arab American so ميلا معناتها ذا مي بعد بفخيلة ثلاين هم بقولتو question to some people إلى White House sometime كنت كويا سياسة كاو رئيس ونائب رئيس بس كم بقولتو لا question خمدي كم عاجب لي بقاوة إلى that يبثيخ line to almost anybody wants to come on that's how powerful nationwide how كل أمريكا and that's going to happen April 11. That is very proud moment to Nashathila Middle East to do the hadakut mata akha. Aga basakhni wadi'a. ده كده خميوه You Chaldean Iraqiyin, you Chaldean Arab, you Chaldean American. Kalbujala Betha Kido too most of the time. La Betha Latin, Wayl Kazvela, Lat Ekabri van Drajo. هم ناشن رجع على شعوق عادي لا حرب يوكرين لكن اللي من رجع وأمريكا رشلي إلا مع كذا واني عم رابع دولات مع كذا أي oligarch مراد روسيا يدينا بغزايا special report at South Korea almost كم تخمل خام هم North Korean مخيالة because السر عوايل و time 10 كمرخشيلة كلها South Korea ويقدر تاما يمكن 30-40,000 troops أمريكا له أظن مع كودي بأوروبا same thing بأفريقيا same thing كمعيشو Middle East بسعودية there must be this thing here بسعودية كودي same thing 6 fleet يلتاما بدبي وأبو دابي واني so ثوخو هنا ثوخو مني وخخني هنا تديذخ ميلا because أخني كراشوخ المندي قام ستريشن وطلعتي وربيشن I'm sorry but most of the Arab most of the ناس around the world لكودي هادخ لكودي أخني كودخ أخني سراي دعيش لن أوقب كمري بالباشن وينمحكوي هذا خيديو يوم بسيمة إلى شبث إيذا يشعر قايم and that's how we're here بس كل أخوة زوري أخني هرث من دي كده أخوة هرث من دي so we're going to have Judge Deborah Nance in a few minutes come to us. We're going to have Paul Mendy Daha to read the funerals Qamazala Mendy. You have it? Yeah, go ahead. So Becky, Paul, go get your test, man. Real test. I know where you're going. So, Dab Dath.
بدم خلصالم كل وايم كل قدش وكل بلايم يا مريم طواني ثان طر بليل بقوش انثى درش لا مبادي بيثا داها وهر شعث دموثا طلبكم يما حلوثا خلصهم أربع شراثا بشعثا خراثا دموتا هالجبل بشعث دموتا مريم يمد تناثا خالص من قويد
أخوات وخثوات عزيزة مشونيلة رحمد مريا محسيا جورج بطرس شمعون بدهاو قورتدية صبرا يوم الشبثة بشيث بقاود السر مخشكة بإيتد ماريوسب مذيت ديتروي وبطر الدخ بدهاو تعزيتي بقاود قاعد مطعم صحارى بستيرلينغ هايتس من طلث والإشواء بعاصرته محسيا جورج بطرس شمعون بدهاو قورتدية صبرا يوم الشبثة بشيث بقاود السر مخشكة بإيتد ماريوسب مذيت ديتروي وبطر الدخ بدهاو تعزيتي بقاود قاعد مطعم صحارى بستيرلينغ هايتس من طلث والإشواء بعاصرته هم مشونيلة رحمد مريا محسيا صبري بحي شنقو بدهاو قورتدية صبرا يوم الشبثة بشيث بقاود السر مخشكة بإيتد سهذة بستيرلينغ هايتس وبطر دخ بدهاو تعزيتي بقاود قاعد بلاجيو بانكوت هول وبيشي تاما والإشواء بعاصرته محسيا صبري بحي شنقو بدهاو قورتدية صبرا يوم الشبثة بشيث بقاود السر مخشكة بإيتد سهذة بستيرلينغ هايتس وبطر دخ بدهاو تعزيتي بقاود قاعد بلاجيو بانكوت هول والإشواء بعاصرته ألام حاسيلا وهوا ملكوث دشمية.
مريم يما حاليثا مطرا من بشتا وطيثا وهاو غازر طاموتا مرحق لنا شبيشي وهاو خلدم يد قديشي من حب دعا المبريشي ونهرد آله الويشي ملوش لن قديشوثا هل النعم وملكوثا خد مخلق بداية موثا بشمادة ليثا يوثا من يتقاري لخدايب يا وتلي لبا وخايب بد مخلصة تم كل واي وكل قدش وكل بلاي مراحة مطلب مريم تخيثام إيش عبرون اختناثا تمرحق للنور دهوثا تخازغ شوحة خب ملكوثا.
Welcome back, أخوات وأخوات بجان زي أورم يوخموخو والشيث بشوى بعصرته كبيرة من نوخ هري وتنبقوري يوخموخو بيوتيوب ببيثو بيوتيوب إلى بجان زي أورم شو بخازوت ولن بخمشو بلغي والشيث بشوى ترشابو أربوشابو روتا إمراتي على زورة كثويلة بليز كثولة بيوتيوب التوخو كله يوتيوب اعمل لت يوتيوب انا مثلنا خال بيثم يوتيوب جان زي أورم شو بخازتون ثانك يو بول قريلاني محسي زلا منن كي بغدادو خمن دي تخازنة أخونا جيري وفريال يونو كم زمنيلة ساوثيو فيونر هوم ليلة تاما بعد وكي بندودن خا سبيشال انترفيو مي سبيشالي إما دتراوت نايي وأخونا جيري ما قدريلا بث كميونيتي ديان ليبا نرخات بالغ بكميونيتي إخواتي تبقلا أني ورزالة كم زمني خشون 35 40 years 50 years هلكين ما جيري ويرا بث مندي. It's a beautiful feeling. We want to thank you Jerry Macha especially مني ومعايلتي محسيد بابي ماقا كبيوالو وجان زي أورم وتيم دي and كلنا خاي almost my nation before that the beautiful job you did. So كبندر منه أخوة أخواته وخطواته Jerry after Okashenne he sold out the funeral home and we're going to miss him but I can't wait to get him here. So he's أو خاطر فريال دريلا أوقشنة the best job in America. It was the best job and the best service. بخون جيري يونو فريال يونو ما ودلا طالا آخر مامن نوخو unbelievable أوقشنة the happiest moment in our life when we have our family and friends. And the sad is when we went to Jerry, but he made us comfortable, very comfortable. You felt good about it. So Southfield Funeral Home, comes in I think back in January, and we'll go from there. So married to Dorinda Athmandi. Also, Kabira Khuri, Dina Mahkoya May, ila Corona. I don't know, come to the Lamakilda Noir, Lamakotub Corona, Mako Corona, Knashuk Corona, Poltochim with Corona, Corona Klajalkar. So Leila Mene had a Khlasach Kamri because he's talking on his own. Oh, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out why he's talking. Microphone DNA Judge Deborah announced that Honorable Judge دبر ناس وأخبروني مايكل إلى آخر بهذا فيكس كاميرتي إلى خروطة غزي ما خليها كان بين آخر قصة Michael I look like I don't know you can move me to my other area here so I could get to Paul عمني وهيثم جولاخ so Mary Covet تربار اللي جن أخو خشمني لرند بلاطة بس لامد كبيرة ناشة ويمدي الشقيلة أنا كذا هي الشقيلة 3 امد بوستر واركم شغلنا بفلوريدا a couple months ago إنه تاير إنه جهية خاطت كامري بس it's tough you know very tough دمرنا أخو كبيرة ناشي لعب شقال آخر تجاي وليلة شقة ثمندي ليلة شقة no way that كماري أثمندي ويمد ليلة شقيلة shots دي could be worse كده خدتن conspiracy theories آخر يمدك محكي بس I'm about to give my fourth shot أنا ونزدية كيبن بلطن كيبن زالي كزالن الدكانة بس تم زناليتا معنا وعائلتي ثوانا ماسك ديان الويشة even with 3 boosted you know امد 3 مدمري وبشمع أجاني بساندي أبو كورونا دكتور فوتي وخنة إلى محكوي same thing محكي لها March و April 2020 وجزادخة أنا محس يزلع منا نطلب death مندي it's a horrible situation oh I don't know Michael's the judge we'll go to a song hello
مخنية وين ألولاخ من بقرة خرالا مخنية وين ألولاخ من بقرة خرالا خشلامة مني طالع حبي ويقاري طالع خشلامة مني طالع حبي ويقاري طالع قوم قروس وليبه عززتايات الكيف قوم قروس وليبه عززتايات الكيف لك ماشي نشو عدانا رمث اخت الله دوالا لك ماشي نشو عدانا رمث اخت الله دوالا كل شي رخمر تشموني لبيقي الشات اخرانا كل شي رخمر تشموني لبيقي الشات اخرانا اوي مقوم قروس وليبه عززتايات الكاتب قوم قروس وليبه عززتايات الكاتب آيات لبدن ويوات آيات زوني بشتوات آيات لبدن ويوات آيات زوني بشتوات إذا ميذا مشواوات قامت عسق صبرتوات إذا بذا مشواوات قامت عسق صبرتوات تسقطها وبطناي القوشة بن دواي تسقطها وبطناي القوشة بن دواي جيزي وقاشات ودخو شنقو أسمار وغورو جيزي وقاشات ودخو شنقو أسمار وغورو شعيوتا ومر تشموني سامونا يلدا وعبرو شعيوتا ومر تشموني سامونا يلدا وعبرو أوي والمحلات تغليبتك عززتايات الكيب المحلات تغليب عززتايات الكيب يوما نخبيش بلبا إذا تصليوا وعنبا يوما نخبيش بلبا إذا صليوا وعنبا ما بسي ما بسلاقا ويوما نتقي غرابا ما بسي ما بسلاقا ويوما نتقي غرابا أوي بقى وقبورو سوليبتك عززتايات الكيف قوى غبورو سوليبي عززتايات الكيف
Welcome back, Akhawatha Khithwatha. You ready? There you go. Oh, Honorable Judge Deborah Nance. I learned that. I had to read it all up because you're my friend. I always call you a hi friend. Welcome to John Zia Oram show after a couple of years.
Thank you. It's great to be back after a couple of years. It's
My
great
first
to be
guest.
back anywhere.
Thank you.
Hello to all of your listeners. I've missed you.
Yeah, well, you know they love you, and you've done a great job, just like you said a couple years ago you would. And all overall is not just for the community of the Chaldeans on this show, but it's for everyone in the state of Michigan, especially your district. But whoever passes through your district, you don't want to see them, really. They should say hi to you in the street, not in the courtroom, right?
Well, if they live in my district, I'd love to have them as jurors because we're back open for business.
That's right.
And we're conducting jury trials again. And again, thank you for having me, John. I'm Judge Deborah Nance, 46th District Court. We're seated in Southfield. My jurisdiction is Southfield, Lathrop Village, Beverly Hills, Bingham Farms, and Franklin. And yes, we have begun having jury trials once again. It's the American way. And it's been great to be able to conduct jury trials in a safe environment. And our courthouse, which is again now open to the public, we still have some of our visitors who come in masked up. They want to continue to mask, and that's perfectly fine. Although it's no longer required in the courthouse, it is simply at your own option. But we do still observe social distancing when we have jury trials, and I've had several since we've started back.
Do you back on live? Because when I ran into you once, you were Zooming still. Are you back?
We're doing both. We actually have both Zoom hearings and in-person matters. And sometimes, John, I'm actually back and forth on the same docket. So some people choose to be in person. Not everyone has access to the technology that allows them to come in by Zoom. Some of our older citizens are not as tech savvy and prefer to simply come into court in person. Some people do not have an internet connection and choose to come into court in person.
Wow.
But those for whom Zoom works, we're able now to allow people to come into court while they're at work. They simply take a break at the time that their hearing is scheduled. And so we see people often appearing in their hard hats because they're out on construction sites, or we see nurses or medical people appearing with their scrubs on inside the hospital. And so we're able to take people where they are, so they don't necessarily have to take the day off work anymore, whether it's a landlord-tenant matter or even a pretrial on a criminal case. They can now come in by Zoom. The only time we really want people in the courtroom is when they're giving testimony. But if they're simply coming in on a matter for which they're not raising their right hand and giving testimony, we try to accommodate them as much as possible with the technology that we now have. We're going to be on Zoom for a long time to come.
Wow.
There are some cases for which it just works better and it provides more access.
How do you feel about it as a judge?
I love technology when it works.
When it works.
Sometimes technology doesn't work. For example, we do have a 6-second delay. So if a person is speaking and then I start to speak, sometimes
it's happening to us now.
We're talking on top of each other.
It's happening with Michael trying to correct the 6-second delay.
Sometimes we have crackling or echoes. So there's problems with technology. Technology isn't perfect, but when it works, it's a beautiful thing.
So this is ongoing. Is that a Supreme Court decision in Michigan that tell the jurists and the judges that you can do this, or is it a policy decision or administration or governors, or what is it?
Well, right now it's still being debated. There are those that want to return to normal, quote unquote, whatever normal is, but they want to return to conditions prior to the pandemic, and that means have everyone appear in person. And there's some members of the judiciary who like Zoom technology, especially now that each of us actually has a YouTube channel. During the pandemic, because we could not have our courtrooms open, and there was still a mandate to have public access because the courthouse, the courtroom belongs to the public. You have a right to know what's going on there. So each of us were able to subscribe to a YouTube channel. So now all you really need to do is to put our names in your cell phone or your electronic device, and you can actually YouTube into our courtrooms when we're in session and observe and watch us.
That's what we do, because I switched from the radio, as you know, I told you, and to YouTube, because when I have my mom, 97-year-old mom,
Yes.
and my aunts and my uncles watching me between the age of my 7-year-old grandson and 97-year-old mother, I know it's working. So now she says to me, you have to quit being all the time. How are you sitting with me? You're showing over there on TV. So, but I didn't know the system is like, this is a huge thing that I should translate if you give me a second.
Yes.
So, Chwada Chatwata Tanacha, Hakimon, Deborah Nancy, Lam Salthiel, Ila Bimara Ibo Khundam Khabrutu, Before I translate it too much, Your Honor, you have to have a lawyer to do this, or they can just do it themselves to call the court. Do they make an appointment that they'll be in Zoom, or they be?
Those litigants who have a court appearance are sent a notice that actually gives them the Zoom address
Option.
to our courtroom.
So ibo dum khabrutu haram telephone di yohu yam Zoom di yohu yalohu ki di milath mindi ki watu bishman akhila, very important to mahkama in the whole state of Michigan, Your Honor, or is that just district courts?
That's in the entire state of Michigan, all state courts and many federal courts, but certainly all state courts.
Wow.
And those who simply want to be spectators and watch, they would come in directly through a YouTube channel by Googling.
I can Google your court and watch cases?
That's right.
Well, wow.
That's right.
I love it because that's what's making my money is this technology, but sometimes it doesn't work like you say, like my
That's
microphone
right.
over there. So that is honestly, hold on. So single moms, a lot of it you see through your courts and other ones, people with no vehicles. Don't you think that helps them save their jobs? I mean, you have to I see these young kids way back when. I don't want to monitor courts, as you know how much I'm involved, and to help the teenagers. And 18-year-old, 21-year-old, 25-year-olds, and single mom, and they leave a whole day for the tickets they owe 3 times because they couldn't make it. So now they can literally go on the Zoom, see the court, talk to the court, and pay their ticket at the same time.
And the privacy of their homes.
And the privacy
We
of their
see
home.
people who are sitting at their kitchen tables, who are sitting at their
Don't tell them everything you told me, Judge, before the airtime.
at their living rooms. Many of them are holding their children.
Beautiful. I tell you.
But they can actually Zoom in, take care of their court appearance, as you said, if it's a ticket or if it's even a misdemeanor for driving on a suspended license, they can still come in. Now, many will come in with their lawyers. So imagine, if you will, they're in a little box. The litigant is at a little box at the bottom of the Zoom screen, and their attorney is in a different box on the Zoom screen. The attorney still represents them, and if the two of them need to speak about the case, the court simply puts them in a breakout room so that they can, a private chat room on Zoom, so they can speak to each other about the case and then come back into the court session.
Does the attorney can do Zoom too?
Yes, the attorney Zooms in also.
So, but any citizen can represent themselves too.
Any citizen can still represent yourself. You can represent yourself in a criminal matter or a civil matter.
How much, as you know, you and I known each other over a decade, how much is that saving people's time and effort, no matter who they are? In a way, I know you have some glitches in there, but the time and the life and the families and all this involved, it should outweigh the glitches.
Well, certainly it's a savings. Look at some of the courthouses that are in downtown areas. I'll use, for example, I believe Genesee County Courthouse, and I don't want to be mistaken, is in a downtown area. Our 36th District Court in Detroit is in a downtown
You mean the $48
area.
parking for a
Yes,
courthouse?
when you go to court, you've got to park downtown, you've got to pay for parking. All of that is an expense of coming to court. Now, courthouses such as mine, the parking is right out front and it's free, but there are some courthouses in which you have to pay the expense of parking, and that really is a cost savings. Now, at the same time, there are some caveats, John. We do have people who try to Zoom into their hearing while driving. We discourage that. We will stop
accept
the hearing.
it, or you
no,
stop it?
we stop the hearing and ask you to please pull over.
It's okay.
People are trying to do too many things these days.
It's not
while
okay,
driving.
but Your Honor, as you know, by percentage in anything, including corona, including drunk drivings, including this, there's percentage, but more majority outweigh the minority of percentage, then is worth the cost. You just opened my heart, honestly. Well, you know how much I care and I work with the court system
Yes.
a lot, is that I knew it was coming. You and I kind of flipped by it, but to have something like this, I mean, I got to start a whole new thing here
It's
in our.
revolutionary.
Wow.
It really is.
Well, you know, everybody looks out for themselves, right? They go to court and they hire these attorneys, and they should, and they go in front of the judges, and they have an attitude. Some of them, and, as a victim or as a defendant, because they have all this personal life problem for them just to show up in court and to be saying, okay, you have to come back in June, or you have to come back in this. And I think that's going to help a lot. I think is going to, how do you manage that? How do you know what they're telling you? You ask the same question you do in courts to the defendant?
Well, we ask the same questions, John, but quite honestly, there are some people who have taken the liberty of being not as courteous as they might be if they were standing in the courtroom.
Because they have it too easy.
Because they're at home or they're on a job, and they're not as they don't appreciate the forum as much. You know, there's something about walking into a courtroom or a courthouse that just demands the attention of people. If you were to ever visit a federal courthouse with all of the marble and the high ceilings, it just makes you feel as if you're in a place
Go
of
through security
respect.
checkpoints.
Yeah, it's security checkpoints, but you feel like you're in an atmosphere of respect. Sometimes that gets lost when you're on Zoom court and people are really standing out at a construction site, as I said, in court, or they're in the classroom because they're teachers, or they are at the hospital actually still working. I have had litigants actually tell me to hold on while we're on the record because they've got to do something with their jobs. Hold on, Judge, I'll be right back.
How much time will take for this thing to go through in a real life? I mean, here's the great thing about education, of new technology, of social media, right? That's why I moved into the social media, and it hasn't been easy growing it, but now we're growing into it. And because I can tell you financially wise, it's saving a whole lot of fees that I was paying to be on there. And to do that, but you got to be, I mean, look at the studio. You got to be who, be whatever technology does. How much is people are saving on this technology that are already kind of educated on because of this TikTok and WikTok, and all these people are really educated on social media. And now they're handling the case, but also their life is on the line too, right?
It's a serious matter.
It's a serious matter, right?
Court.
Yes.
And it sounds like it's easy, but for some people, it still is a challenge, John. Not everyone has a Wi-Fi connection. So when I have a litigant that appears before me, and they're literally walking around they're walking around a parking lot at an office building trying to pick up the connection.
Wi-Fi.
The Wi-Fi connection from the office building, and at the same time they're trying to dodge cars in the parking lot and dodge traffic and still be observant as to their surroundings. It's a challenge, and until we in Michigan have pervasive, widespread use of a Wi-Fi connection, it's still a challenge to some who cannot afford the technology.
And this is a state law, the state of Michigan.
In the state of Michigan, we're operating by Zoom. We had to during the pandemic in order to keep things moving.
So when there's a person in Florida going on vacation to Florida, can they Zoom in from there and live there?
They certainly can.
Wow.
As long as the Zoom address, if they have the Zoom address, they don't have to come back in town. As a matter of fact, we've been able to resolve some cases for outstate litigants who may have committed an offense, and now they're coming back to maybe have that offense set aside or expunged from their records. We've had people from Texas, from California, people as far off as Maine, who have now come back into our court via Zoom for their hearing without having the necessity of having to travel here and appear in the courtroom. So, yes, it has truly been a savings for a lot of people unable to travel back to Michigan.
And where's the police officer coming in? As you know, some of them for a long time, because of their job and their duty, they'd be off 4 to 6 hours to hear a case. How do they do it, by Zoom too from
They
work?
can zoom in from their technologies. Many of them zoom in from their police cars. They
Wow.
don't have to come into the courtroom. They just zoom in from the connection that they have in their units, in their police units.
Is that helping percentage of settling in like traffic tickets and things like that, you think?
Yes, it is.
More revenues coming in?
Well, I don't know about the revenue portion, but I know that it helps people. For example, sometimes there's an issue regarding identity of the driver. So when you can have the patrol officer actually there to look at the person who is challenging that they were the driver, you can get that resolved without a face-to-face meeting in some cases.
That's unbelievable. That's, we're trying to figure out how we should translate it in our stuff. We're working on the deal right now with Soaring Eagle Casino. Sport book, sport this like that, and we translating it in a way that they can understand it in Arabic. And at the same time, in our community, I'm sure there's other communities of Albanians and Yugoslavians and Greeks and whatever. But the biggest failure I see in this system that all along was coming, especially from people from Iraq, is that we really never given a chance to go in front of a judge. The cop was the judge and the jury, right? And the police officer in Iraq, it wasn't even a cop, he was actually a troop, army guys, they would be. So that gives you a chance now that you have no more excuse, and don't call John Oram, I'm trying to tell them. Say they can usually call me.
And it's interesting you should say that, John, because you're right. There are countries where you don't have an opportunity to have your day in court.
Nope.
Where you don't get a chance to have a voice
Nope.
or to be recognized or to make a statement. And what's so unfortunate is that here in this country, you do have a right to your day in court, but so often people do not come. And whether it's, and I just tell people all the time, when you don't come to court, something happens anyway. You should be a part of the process. You should want to be a part of the process. If it's a criminal matter and you don't come, there could be a bench warrant issue.
Does this settle a civil matter too?
If it's a civil matter, you get defaulted, meaning that if you're being sued by someone, if you don't show up, they automatically win. It's called a default.
So I thought, so we can move on, I thought the cases of the Zoom were because of Corona, but it looks like somehow there's a run into a practice to keep it in the system.
There is a...
Because you and I talked about it.
Yes, there is a desire to keep the Zoom court in the system because it reaches out to people who may not typically be able to get in to the courthouse, as you said earlier. It really makes it, everybody has a device of some kind, so it seems. You can zoom in on your cell phone. Why wouldn't you want to participate in a hearing where your liberty is at stake or your money is at stake if you're being sued? You should want to participate and be there. In this country, you have a right to be there, and now Zoom court makes it even more convenient.
It's a great subject. I'd like to get you back, but you caught me off guard with that question and answer thing because you and I talked about a little bit earlier today. We text each other, and I kind of read about it, me involved in at least 5 cases last week, helping people with different courts, referring them lawyers and whatever they need in a way that, mind you, they can do it themselves. Maybe now it would be an excuse for me to say, you got your phone or computer, I even have somebody Wednesday ask me to go to 41 District Court with them to sit there. To do what? So it's a good thing to do because they fear. That's they fear.
Yeah, and
they
people
fear.
are fearful. And I do a show, and that's the reason for my show also, is to make people less afraid to come to court. Another thing I want your listeners to make sure that they're aware of is what is called in Michigan limited scope representation. Limited scope representation. Attorneys can be expensive. Limited scope representation allows for you to hire a lawyer just for a small portion of the case to represent you instead of the entire case. For instance, you could hire a lawyer just to write your answer or the pleadings only. You can hire a lawyer only to appear with you in court, but you do everything else.
That's something new, Judge?
It's within the last, since 2017, 2018.
It really good. Wow.
Limited scope representation. You just hire them for a piece or a portion of the case rather than the entire case start
They will
to
not sue
finish.
you for the balance?
They will not sue you for the balance. You sign an agreement with them to just do a certain portion. Just come with me to court, because I don't want to go to court and stand in front of the judge alone. And they will represent you just for your court appearances. But everything else, you do yourself. Or they only write your pleadings.
That's some
Limited scope representation.
So أخوات وأخوات حاكمة إلى إياها محكوية Judge Honorable Judge Deborah Nance إلى إما نايسر تريسرشن إلى بعيانا هن يبدأوا مبلخوتو محامي شمو اللي I don't know which camera Michael's got on me ويبقوا دمرتو بس هي من المحكمة يا هيو آية من المحكمة وبعدين بطر يوم ترين زال أذ كيس يمرلق عايز خلوخو because كيدوخ مازي بار بث case. So كودو to save pattern you save a lot of money because محامين before camera 2017 2018 واو لازم مقبل خطلة محامي ولكم سايب لوخو with خالص case دي. It is so important. What a first time somebody coming back after 2 years of Corona. This critical part of the attorneys and a client, that's the problem you got with fees, right? All these lawsuits comes right back in front of you or somewhere in front of somebody else. And because they misunderstood that case, it was, whatever amount it was, it drags into thousands of dollars and said, this is what you owe me because you came over and you had me come over and da-da-da. That's I'm going to have to revisit you on that. I have a couple more questions for you. First thing, I'd like you to promote your show. You have a beautiful show that I listened to. One day you had me on there, and
Yes.
And you had the chief of police, Barron of Southfield, and that I happen to know when he first made a policeman in Detroit. And they do a beautiful job, and you guys are doing, but we know our family personally,
Yes.
and we don't want to go there because it's some good and some horrible things could happen in life. But God's only even God, and you're a big believer in God. That's what I love about you. You, the
He
big
guides my
believer.
life.
God is your life, and you
God
always tell me
guides my
on the record, off the record, doesn't matter. And what's going on in the courtroom, do you take it to heart in the way you represent your citizens all around, like you say? And you did your own volunteer show on Saturday, 6 to 8 on 9:10 a.m. I was talking to Kevin Adele about you today. He goes, Oram, why don't you buy the station? I said, leave me alone. That's 50 I could have, but not in 70, And you have a great show there. Is that what you're doing, educating your people? Pre-done things, important things?
Exactly. The same as I do here when I come and visit you, John. I want to simply educate the public. I believe that because people are afraid to come to court, that if I can somehow pull back the curtain and allow people to become more comfortable with the court process, the people who serve, particular legal matters, whether it's what happens in a drunk driving case or domestic violence case or an assault and battery or any of the misdemeanor cases, I certainly want people to be more knowledgeable. But I very often have attorneys on and judges who represent all kinds of topics. For example, I have had federal bankruptcy judges come on and discuss the bankruptcy process, whether it's what happens when you file Chapter 7 versus filing Chapter 13. I brought him back, actually, right during the pandemic when people were losing their jobs, couldn't pay their rent, couldn't pay their mortgage, didn't know what to do. And so we discussed the bankruptcy laws again. Now, I don't practice bankruptcy, but I still want people to be knowledgeable of their legal rights. And so for me, it's about educating the community about what goes on in the criminal justice process and the court process. I also like to have them meet judges who represent their community. And since the show has been out of the studio for the last 2 years, and since we've been calling in from our home offices, I've been able to interview judges from Lansing, from northern Michigan, from all kinds of segments of the population in various jurisdictions, because I believe that you need to get to know your local judges better. You need to hear their voices, maybe hear them chuckle and laugh like I do with John, so that the next time you're in their courtroom, I've had people actually stop me and say that they were glad that I had a particular judge on because I have a case with that person coming up. And now I have heard them laugh and speak, and they're people just like me. They're human, and I feel much more comfortable now coming into my court date. And again, to me, it's about encouraging people to be less afraid to come to court.
So you do it every Saturday, 6 to 8 to 9:10 a.m.
9:10 a.m., yes.
And how did you get motivated to do that? Because I lost you here a little bit.
Well, I don't know how I got motivated.
One day you told me I'm going to start a show.
I've always been motivated to get out into the community, to do workshops and town halls and those kinds of things. As you might remember, I did a town hall segment in 2018 on the opioid crisis. I did another town hall segment on, or a forum on the mass incarceration issue. I've done town halls on the expungement fairs. I've done expungement fairs, which is setting aside conviction, and I've done them in a forum at Southfield in which I also had the professor from the University of Michigan who teaches a business law clinic bring her law students in to the expungement fair so that a person who had a criminal history that wanted to get their criminal history cleared could then sit at another table and speak to one of the business law students to learn how to start their own business. I believe also so heavily, because you know I'm a big friend of the business community, in entrepreneurship. I would have people come into court and say, Judge, I have some criminal blemishes on my background. I can't find employment. And I would say to them, if you can't find a job, let's figure out how you can create.
Can you explain that expunge a little bit, Your Honor? That's so critical that you were explaining it to me before we got on the air, that the expunge is so critical. I worked briefly with it on the deportation time with few people that we know in our Chaldean community. But it's so important. A lot of the judges in Oakland County, some of those cases were caught from a former prosecutor, Brooks Patterson. They pleaded guilty in July of 1990 war, and they were scared of the jurist. And then in year 2016, 17, 18, immigration comes in and says, oh, you cashed a check, so this and that, we're going to put you on the deportation on the tether. I mean, created a massive, still is. We still have over 100 families on tether right now. That when President Biden came in, he kind of laid back in Iraq. But more Iraq gets fixed right, and I hope it does, but it doesn't. More people get sent back based on what you're saying. So how does the expunge thing works for everybody, if you can explain it, Your Honor?
That's interesting, John, that you mention it in conjunction with immigration issues. I cannot tell you, and I can't give any legal advice, but I can talk about process and procedure. So the expungement process is called a set aside of your criminal conviction. It sets it aside. Last year, for instance, Michigan became the 6th state to enact automatic conviction relief for a broad range of misdemeanors and felony convictions. The automatic set-aside process removes barriers and paves the way for more people to find good jobs, secure safe and affordable housing, and strengthens families and communities, and it makes our local economy more robust. But I do not know how it intervenes with the immigration and deportation laws.
It destroys massive lives internally into a family. That absolutely, I know a young lady that is 57 today. She was sitting where you are, and I helped her go through Ingham County Court. She was picked up doing sweep, whatever you want to call it. She was 17 years old with her boyfriend, called Ian. No shame in this. And she got charged with check fraud. At age 57 in 2018, she got picked up at work where she owns a business. Okay, single mom of 4, and God bless. 2 of the kids are gone now, so there are only 2 kids left. And she spent 6 months in Ingham County Jail with the rest of them before her case was heard. And took a judge, and God bless him, in Ingham County, all 33 seconds to find out how long you've been here and where you've been. But it cost over $100,000 in legal fees.
You know,
For a check cash. I'm sorry, Judge. A check when she was 17 years old in Highland Park.
That's exactly what the expungement laws are set out to do. People, young people, make mistakes.
That's right.
We see so many 17, 18, 19, early 20-somethings who have made a mistake. And now 20 years later, they've never had another offense, many of them. Some of them may have had a few more blemishes with the law, but now they're different people than they were when they were in their early 20s. Now they want to be business owners, and they are business owners, and they've done all kinds of wonderful things in the community, giving back to the community. But for this offense that is still on their record, their businesses can't grow, or there's certain licenses that they cannot get because of this criminal offense, or this criminal offense is holding them back. That's exactly what the expungement and set-aside laws are for, is to clear the way for families, communities, individuals, entrepreneurs to succeed and become successful in spite of the mistake that they made 20 years ago.
That's what happened with the young lady. In the $100,000 that she got, she borrowed against the business for the next 5 years to pay the loan instead of working the 20 years. So is it a site they can go on, expunge.com or so? How do you find out what the law says?
You can simply Google setting aside convictions
Wow.
or expungements in the state of Michigan and find information about what is required, the paperwork that's required. This is something that you can file on your own. You do not have to have a lawyer to file. You file the paperwork in the court in which the conviction was given. So if it's a matter out of the 46th District Court, you file it in the 46th District. If you were convicted in a circuit court, you file it in that particular circuit court. You cannot file for an expungement of convictions from other states. You have to do that in that state.
In that area.
Some states don't have these laws, and some states limit the particular offenses that can be expunged. But here in Michigan, it's becoming more and more progressive because the state economy mandates that we get people back to work and that we set aside these convictions of earlier years where people have been solid citizens ever since and have really contributed to their communities.
Judge, to think of that, that's a great thing. But when this corona, March 2020, came into play, still going, what did you see in your court system with the crime and families and domestic violence? That, a lot of people, we have a lot of single people around, right? We have a lot of people divorced with the kids. Did it affect the family in a way that we don't see in public? Because, it's so sad you only hear when things happen bad, right?
Yes.
And was it such like an organization still that people can go to and get help? Because I know you're heavily involved in a lot of this stuff.
John, it was awful, the number of domestic violence cases that were filed during the pandemic. When there is a relationship where control, whether it's physical control, mental abuse, emotional abuse, verbal abuse, which sometimes occur before it becomes physical, the number of cases rose dramatically because suddenly those who were the victims weren't able to go out to the mall on a Saturday afternoon to get away. They weren't able to go to a relative's house to spend the weekend just to get away. They weren't able to take the kids to a water park or do any of those things that prior to the pandemic they had done to simply get space. Now they are in the home with the abuser with no place to go. And if the abuser had recently lost employment, didn't know how they were going to pay their bills, and now financial problems mount, so the tension in the household mounted. And as the tension mounted, the cases came in, unfortunately.
Wow.
I can remember a case when, such as, I asked the person, how did this argument even start? And I was told, over a cup of water for the child. Things so minor were causing people to just react so violently. There were pent-up tensions, pent-up frustrations, and under the pandemic, a lot of people exploded. Also, road rage went up. We saw more cases of people being pulled over and arrested or stopped because of a road rage incident. Again, those pent-up frustrations, pent-up tensions. Everybody was
Tension.
having a bad day.
And it's not like something's going to go away already.
Yes.
It's not. It's still there, and they have to educate the public.
We also had more drunk driving because people were drinking more. Many unemployed because of the pandemic, again, concerned, worried about finances, and having plenty of time to drink, did so, but then they also drove.
All those things we just talked about. Thank you, Your Honor, for being here on John Zia Oram show, and one of my favorite people, as you know. It's vice versa, I guess.
Yes, it is vice versa. You're one of my favorite people. I call you Brother John.
All the time, and I love it. And my sister Christine texts, and she says how your judgeship being in Southfield or the community affects our Chaldean community in a way. Do you guys have translator? Do they get to be appointed as a magistrate if they apply to lawyers? And how long does it take to be a lawyer to run for a judge? Just like you did, because I ran into you first time I met you at a Middle Eastern gas station.
Putting up a sign.
Putting up a sign. And I was high and rolling at the time with President Obama, and I was living the life. But I cared about you. And, as you know, between late Steve Hood and I probably elected over a couple hundred judges in the last 30 years, and he passed away on me. Miss him a lot. But I saw it in you from putting up that sign that you not only, my niece is a judge, and I have a lot of judges of good friends, but I saw it in you that you care about the community. What do you advise our community to do? All the things you mentioned, it fits all people. It doesn't just fit one single community. But when they narrow it down to be who we are, again, we're afraid of running for office. We're afraid to ask questions. Still, we get smarty a little bit sometimes when we got good lawyers around, but lawyers don't make things for you. It's a human nature, right? And they think good lawyers and big money does it all. How many years you have to be to run for an office, a lawyer, and how do you get a governor to appoint someone?
All right. Well, that's a great question, John. There are two ways to become a judge. First of all, there is a requirement that you be a law school graduate, and that
so I can't get appointed, huh?
You can still go to law school, John.
Oh,
You're a very
my God.
smart man. You probably know all of the answers already. You go to law school, such as I did. I went as an evening student, actually. It takes 3 years full-time, up to 6 years. They will give you part-time, and I was a working mom and mother and full-time employee, and had always a desire to become a lawyer, and decided that it was time to go back. And you then graduate from law school and take the bar exam. Oh, the bar exam, the dreaded bar exam. We do live in a state, however, in which there is some reciprocity, meaning that there are some states that will accept the Michigan bar exam passage to practice in their state. So you can do that also. But you have to, at this time, there was a time when you could graduate from law school and run directly for judge. There was a
Oh, is
time
that
that you
right?
could do that in this state. We have many people who had judges in their families. Their fathers or grandfathers were judges, and they had judicial names, and they just simply ran directly out of law school. But now you must practice for at least 5 years.
How long ago that's been in?
It's been in effect for a while now. I don't want to guess how long it's been, but it's been in effect for a while that you must have 5 years of practice. It must be at least 5 years or have 5 years of practice before running for a judge. There are two ways to send to the bench. One is by appointment, and that means you apply for an open position, and if you are granted that application by the governor here in Michigan, it's a gubernatorial appointment. Now, it works differently in each state, so it doesn't work the same way in Illinois, for example. I have friends on the bench in Illinois who were appointed initially, and they are appointed by the Supreme Court. Here in Michigan, we're appointed by the governor. And once you are appointed by the governor, you then have what is called the power of incumbency, it's called. Judges are the only public servants who are allowed to use the word judge on the ballot in front of their names. So it literally tells you, if other people are running, it tells you who the current judge is because that person has judge in front of their name. Now, if you're running for city council or mayor, you could be the current sitting mayor, but you're not allowed to put mayor or city councilman in front of your name when you're running for re-election, just judges. And you then run typically in the next race or at the end of the term that you're fulfilling. The other way, the way that I initially chose, is by election. You let the people decide. And it's an awesome process of talking to people and meeting people in your community and being active in your community and letting people know you, look you in the eye, just as John did. And I think what he saw in my eyes when we met is someone who was sincere about representing everybody in the community.
I like what I saw at the
in
time.
the
And
community.
I was just visiting. I wasn't pumping gas.
Yes.
I was visiting a friend, and I like that. So, as a magistrate, same thing, Your Honor.
As a magistrate, you are appointed, again, in Michigan, and it varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but as a magistrate, you're appointed to serve at the pleasure of the judges. So typically, it is the chief judge in each courthouse that actually appoints, typically with the unanimous support of all of the judges that are sitting in
They
that
have to
court.
be like 3-0 or 4-0 or like that.
No, it varies. It really varies
it?
by court.
So, magistrate, if the judges in different in Sterling Heights or
Yes.
West Bloomfield or Oak Park, Southfield, or whatever they are, can appoint a Chaldean, and you guys have before, I
Sure.
think, as a magistrate, and the governor can appoint, or you run for office.
Or you run for office.
You run for office, because there was an old joke with my nephew, the attorney, the other day that, because why are you making fun of me? You think attorneys make money? He's finally realizing his law student friends, they're all looking for jobs. Attorneys, I guess we have, I don't know, 200,000 attorneys out here or whatever, and it's good for them to serve too at the same time. So being a judge is not just about being a judge and with the money, because a lot of attorneys can make a lot of money, and they go on they do everything else, as far as I'm concerned, and when I deal with.
Well, frankly, we have many, many, many lawyers who appear before us who make more higher incomes than judges do.
Judges
Yes.
do like that.
It's
So
something you have to really want to do.
I really appreciate you being on here. I got to get you back. I mean, with the expense thing, it'll take a whole thing. I got to work on
We can
this.
talk about that.
I will love it. I'm telling you that right now. But I just want to ask you the first black Supreme Court justice, because I'm looking at this video up there, and you remind me so. She looks just like you. And I am going to get a chance to meet her, by the way.
Thank you. I take that as a
Since
compliment.
I know you.
And please take me along with you when you meet her. I would love to meet her.
So I have an opportunity to meet her, and that would be great. I know the people are involved in her campaign to do it. But as we spoke a couple days ago, and today I sat there and watched YouTube of her hearings and other things, and I did make a comment on it here Friday, and I'm not going to talk politics with you because of the judges. We don't talk too much politics, but this is family, and this is so serious and important to the history. And I'm not very easy to people use color or use the skin or use the knowledge or use the ethnic to be great. Somebody is great. God put us on this earth to be great. And she just seemed like what a great person that raised her family the way she did it. But I don't want you to get too involved if you don't want to in politics. Why does it take so long to do things? And, you know, we ran away. Does Americans really realize how we lived? You could hang us with one go back. And a lot of the foreigners that came here, they would do anything in the world to get to America. Was it the system set up like this from way back, and this is how it was built into a system like this? Why is there so much hype, the first this and the first this in 2022?
Yeah. That's another interesting topic, and we can be here for a long time. I just want to draw your attention to the fact that the first person in Michigan that was considered to be a judicial officer was in 1892, and his name was David Augustus Straker. And he was a lawyer and a politician, civil rights leader. But in 1893, he was actually the Wayne County Circuit Court Commissioner. And that, at that time, was considered to be a judicial office.
A judge.
Now, it didn't say judge, but it was considered to be a judicial office. It wasn't until the early 1950s that Charles Jones was appointed, a gentleman named Charles Jones was appointed to the Detroit Recorder's Court bench, and that here in Michigan, and that was by Governor G. Menon Williams. And Michigan's first black judge. 4 years later, 1954, we had Wade McCree Jr.
Right.
He was the first black judge then appointed to the Wayne County Circuit Court. Then in 1956, there was a John Letts that became the first judge elected to the municipal court in Grand Rapids. But a little known fact here is that Judge Geraldine Bledsoe Ford made history as the first black female judge elected to a judgeship in the United States. In the United States to be elected. And that was in 1966, which you and I sit here, John, and we say that was just the other day. So
well, I met her, I think, in 68,
Yeah.
and I knew her whole family till just passed away a few years ago, not even that long ago. God bless her.
So if we were
Tough woman. Tough
woman.
She was tough in the way that she worked hard. I'm sorry to stop you. And she raised a great family, and she was very respected in the system. But I didn't realize she started that far back. You know?
We're talking about the first black female to be elected in the country. Didn't happen until 1966. Then now we're talking about a Ketanji Brown Jackson, who was born in 1970, who is now, just as of, it's hot off the press, been elected as the first black female justice to the United States Supreme Court.
It was elected by the Congress in the Senate, or just the Senate?
Now, this is an appointed position.
That's how
and she was appointed by our current president, our sitting
But
president.
Geraldine ran for office, right?
Oh, Geraldine. Geraldine was elected.
That's right. And
Yes, she was elected. She was not appointed like the other judges that I've referred to. She was elected by the people.
Wow.
The same as I feel proud to have been when I took the bench. But she was elected. But Ketanji Brown Jackson, our newest Supreme Court justice, has been. She's the first black woman to be nominated and confirmed.
What does that mean to a black? You know, us, we hear it. You can turn on these cable channels, first black, first, and we're looking at them like, how do you get to be black and be punished in the way that I'm speaking for myself? I know we lived that under dictatorship, but this is a free country here. And what, I'm sorry to say this, but what those Republican senators showed, I threw pens and coffee cups and water bottles at TV, and what happened, because what goes around always comes around, is so sad. Please, this is America. This is the greatest nation on earth. Use it while you can. Respect it while you can. You can have differences. I'm sure you and your peers in your court and everywhere else people don't get along. But you get a young lady like this. She was born 1970?
1970.
Wow.
And again, John, you can talk politics. I don't
I
talk
know.
politics,
I know.
but let me tell you a little bit more about her and your listeners about her. She received her undergraduate degree and her law degree from Harvard University, Harvard Law School. And she is the first person on the Supreme Court, and I think this is unique also, to have served as a public defender before sitting on the court. She's the first person to sit on the court and the first justice since Thurgood Marshall, who was our first black justice of the Supreme Court, to represent criminal defendants. And that's significant, John, because you've got somebody now coming to the highest court in the land who has seen things from both
sides.
Perspectives.
Yep.
Both perspectives. And her background, after earning her law degree from Harvard in 1996, she clerked for 2 federal judges, so she has the perspective from having clerked for federal judges. She then became a federal judge after spending some time as a public defender. She was nominated by President Obama, happens to be a fact, to the U.S. District Court in Washington, so she comes from having a federal background as a federal judge. Not someone who was simply still a law professor or practicing at a law firm when they were suddenly nominated to the Supreme Court. So this woman has the background. One of her notable cases is that she was included in one of her notable cases included the 2019 ruling that President Trump's former White House counsel could not use executive privilege to avoid a congressional subpoena. And she is noted for saying, presidents are not kings.
Oh.
So this
Don't
is
get me started.
who we have on the Supreme
It's a
Court
beautiful.
bench.
We pray for her.
She
Her
was
family.
a black woman whose guidance, and this goes to what you just asked me about, her guidance counselor apparently in high school discouraged her from setting her sights on Harvard, while her husband, who is a white man, she married, who also went to Harvard. His family members had attended the universities for generations.
Harvard.
And the two of them fell in love while they were students at Harvard. Her husband is a surgeon, and the two of them have 2 daughters. That's who this
She was
person
almost
is.
in tears in the speech in the lawn of the White House that I have been there many times years ago. And she says, oh, I can't believe I'm in the White House with my kids. Like, and to see that. But what does that mean to a black young girl that has grown through school and her dream and vision, and in this world we live in?
It's what I practice. It's called, if you can see it, you can be it. It is so important to see people who look like yourself, who look like us, as we say, ascend to these positions. And the one thing, however, that I hope people understand is that people, I'll speak for myself, John, it gives me the ability to celebrate the diversity of the people that I serve. We are not all alike. We come from different experiences, different backgrounds, but I celebrate our differences. I reach across to you, my Chaldean brother. I celebrate our differences, and I empathize and sympathize with the plights of everyone and every community that I serve. And I think having someone on the Supreme Court such as this, who I say has even defended, defendants, who has seen the perspective from the defense side, from the prosecutor side, from the judicial side, has the background in education. I'm very proud to have someone like this as just one of those perspectives on the Supreme Court. I think it gives more balance to the decisions that govern all of our lives.
We have I love that. We have a dream and vision too. Our young lady, a Chaldean, Emelina Kassab, my grandniece, I call her my little niece, who kind of helped live through us. And she was in your courtroom.
She practiced in front of me as
a prosecutor,
and she
not
was
too
phenomenal.
long, and she was great.
And I didn't even know that she was related to you until she was leaving.
What did she say? She's told you that, my Uncle John.
Mm-hmm.
But how does she do? So I can give her grades.
She was phenomenal. She was.
We have a lot of dreams for her. I mean, she came out of U of M and her Detroit Law School, and and she loves the job.
Mm-hmm.
And like you say, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter. And even like when I was asking you about a black young girl, it reminded me of the young Chaldean girl, because for us, when somebody gets to be a policeman, we get so proud, or somebody to be something, we get so proud. Mind you, like me, I know thousands of police and judges and this and that, because I was raised to respect, and we all do law and order and do the best we can. But when somebody makes it with the license, or we call it a license or a job or something, then I was talking to her dad, Bert Kassab, and he goes, Uncle John, and Melina was front of Judge Nance, and she goes, my Uncle John Oram, after I guess she was front of you a couple months, she had the baby, and she got a beautiful little girl that runs around that house now. But Bert Kassab doesn't look like a grandpa. I don't know why, but
I believe in our system of justice. I believe heavily, and you do too. That's why you're here in the U.S. That's why you are as entrenched in the community as possible. I believe in our system of justice. Around the world, as you say, they do not have such a system. Is it a perfect system? No. Is any system perfect? No. Our healthcare system is not perfect. Our educational system is not perfect. We have some flaws in our criminal justice system. But I believe in the system of justice. I believe when everyone in that courtroom is doing their jobs to the best of their ability, the prosecutors are working for the people. The defense attorney's working hard, zealously, for his defendant who has rights. The judge is working to make sure that justice prevails. The jurors are working hard to, I've had jurors who've come in on a case and stayed and stayed and stayed. I can't talk enough about our jurors in the state of Michigan, who even at the beginning of the pandemic wore their mask into the courtroom, came in and served their jury duty. When everybody in their system, even the police officers who support the roles of the prosecutor, when everybody in that system is doing their job and doing it well, I believe that the system works.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you so much for that comment, and thank you for being here, because you know what? See, we're still in twilight zone, or people come not just from, like you said, the world. You can skip over to Mexico or other countries, or go over across to Europe. It's a whole different world in here. And we're so proud to all be here. And in a way that the difference in the judges system here, I was just in Canada yesterday. In Canada, a friend of mine just got appointed federal immigration judge. She was a parliament member and deputy prime minister. That her dad was. That's how I lived in Canada for a while. And I asked her, well, when did you run for office? I didn't know. She said, no, from a district or a magistrate, you get appointed for life under the British rule in Canada. At least you get here, you get a chance to run.
And that's how the federal system is here.
Right.
Our federal judges those are typically
And Supreme Court,
lifetime
right?
appointments.
And Supreme Court, federal.
No, the Supreme Court, state courts, you run. Our federal court system.
No, I mean, it's federal Supreme Court, right? Federal system,
Yes,
right?
yes,
the federal judge
system.
and all that.
Yes, that's for lifetime.
And,
Lifetime
and
appointment.
it's lifetime, but it's unique kind of across the border, only like, 2 miles, 5 miles from here. They appointed from magistrate and up for life. So you have to technically be politically connected or who you know and what. Here, at least you run for this thing. But you have a lot of dreams in the future. I know you. I saw you in that gas station. I said, what is she? Well, I just came in from Washington. Then I saw it in you. So God bless you and your
Thank
family.
you. I just have a dream of doing the right thing every day.
That's what I try to do here,
Can I give a quick shout out?
Absolutely.
I'd like to give a quick shout out to Judge Denise Langford Morris, who is retiring this week after 30 years on the bench in the Oakland County Circuit Court. She is the dean of the Circuit Court, the first black female, the first black judge to be appointed initially, and then ran time after time successfully for re-election. She's done a phenomenal job. We're proud of her. And if you're listening out there, if you are an attorney or in the legal profession or just a citizen, and remember her, she's celebrating her career on her last day on the bench, which will be this week. Thank you for allowing me to say that.
I have met her quite a few times, then you and I and her. And last time you won, we were together having a cake, I think. It was your cake.
Yes.
And she, her personality kind of wakes you up in that courtroom. I have been in front of her, or I have been with people in front of her on the civil cases. She brightened up the courtroom because she enjoys it. She loved it. So it's been 30 years already.
30 years. She's considered to be the dean of the circuit court.
And that's your little mentor.
Upon her retirement, someone else will be the dean. We'll find out. And that's the person, they call the dean the longest serving judge. So whoever the next longest serving judge is will have the
honor.
Have the honor of being the dean. Thank you for having me tonight,
Thank
John.
you.
I always enjoy a conversation with
Yeah, usually you and I.
Brother Oram.
Yes, Sister Nance. We usually have these kind of conversation in a way to help others, but it's great to share it with the lives of the people on the air. It's not a beautiful feeling.
And
it's one of my best days so far since I've been back.
First guest back, and good luck to you. Good luck to your show.
Thank you for accepting it.
Everything that comes with, and I want your listeners to know you've got to stay tuned out there. John has good information, good conversation. His heart is in the right place. He wants to inform everybody as to what's going on in the community. Welcome back to the John Z. Oram Show.
Oh, Honor, I need to get to Florida sometime. Can you do my show?
You like that?
Can you do my show? And I want to thank my son, Michael Oram.
Thank you, Michael.
For doing this production here. And I did tell Kevin Adele today, I said, can you rush the judge back in the studio? And he goes, it's coming next couple of weeks.
Right.
Yeah. So I told Kevin that owns 9:10. You have a 9:10 a.m. show on Saturdays.
6 to 8.
6
Your
to
best
8
chance
p.m.
with Judge Nance.
There we go. Thank you, and God bless you, Your Honor.
Everything legal. I leave the politics to John.
I'm learning now. Thank you so much.
Thank
God bless you. We love you. Thank you.
You as well.
Thanty you.
Stay safe and happy out there, everyone.
And Judge Langford Morris, and God bless her into her future and whatever venture she's taken on. And great person. Thank you. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Akhawat Ukhatwatha. Thank you for listening to us. Akhaw Dawkhamohu. God bless you. Thank you for Honorable Judge Deborah Nance and for doing what a super job information. If you want to watch this show, Khurtagai, you want to see it, what she said, you can see it anytime, 24 hours a day in John Zia Oram Show on Facebook, on YouTube, on .com. What a great information. And thank you so much, and God bless you. Love you all. Love you all. Mommy.